All right, so today, guys, we're going to take a little bit different approach at working with triangulated and polygonal forms. Well, one of the things that we did in the last project was to just develop this thing, right, that didn't have really any particular size. We just made it in inches, remember? And so now we're going to transition to trying to do something that might have, you know, a scale and a size to it, all right? So we're going to do that, and I'm going to be asking you guys to sort of think in terms of 1/8 inch to a foot scale, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by, can you see this? Like that. All right. So we're going to start by creating just sort of a rectangle, and I need to leave a little bit of room around it, okay? So I'm going to kind of start in the middle of this sheet that I have right here. And I guess I need to do this with a Sharpie because that camera does not pick up anything but the Sharpie. It has to be a very dark line for the camera to see it. Okay, so I'm leaving room below it and around it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating kind of just a rectangular box. And I'm going to make that rectangular box so that it's about 28 feet wide at 1/8 inch to a foot. Okay? And in length, I'm going to make it about well, tell you what, let's use a proportioning system, shall we? So who's got a calculator? You got a calculator on your phone? Go ahead. So take 28 and multiply it by 1.61, right?
Oh, for what?
What do you get? 45. Okay, so 28 by 45. So I'm looking for 45 is right out here. So first thing I'm going to do is just draw that general rectangle. Now, at a previous class, we talked about proportions of things, right? We talked about how something could get longer, it might get more dynamic. And so what I've used is a proportion here called the golden section, or approximating the golden section. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is I'm going to ask you guys to taper off one portion of this thing so that it doesn't have any right angles in the corners. Okay? So I'm going to take off at this end, I'm going to take off about 6 feet. All right? And I'm going to leave that one alone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave off another 6 feet up here in this corner. All right, so what kind of what's this kind of angle right here? Acute, correct. And so just so that I don't end up with any right angles, I'm going to take out at this end. I'm going to take out 2 feet, or actually 3 feet. Okay. So these are just ballparks. I can draw it up on the board for just a moment. That way you guys can see what that starting point was. So I'll point that kind of over at the board. Does it see the board? So what I did was, working at 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot 0 inches, I created a rectangle, and I started by creating a width of 28 feet. Okay? Then I used a ratio called the golden section, right, which I believe is 1.618, and I multiplied 28 times 1.618. And the number we got, again rounded down a little bit, is 45. So 45 feet. Okay? So that's how we started out. Remember, I'm going to often start with a rectangle to then morph it into a more interesting polygon. So then what I did is I measured here 6 feet over, right? And I drew a line. Then I measured 6 feet down, and I drew a line, right? And then I measured 3 feet up, and I drew a line. And that becomes my final rectangle, or I'm sorry, that becomes my final polygon. Okay? And so this, she can take a picture of it and put it up on canvas if you want. We'll give you our starting point. Well, how many minutes are we at there? Only 5? Okay, let's stop it.